folks, it's the top of the hour. I think we're going to give people a couple more minutes to see if they can straggle in, and then we're going to try to start. I will note that I asked for an hour and they gave us 2, so there's probably little chance that we will use the full 2 hours. A couple more people coming in, so that's good. Give them we'll give another minute and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we've kind of waited long enough for people to show up. I guess I want to welcome everybody to WPAC at IETF 112. The chairs, Sean and David, we're here. I see our editors are here as well. Just a reminder, we're going to record this. Please, if you're not speaking, make sure your microphone is muted. If you want to come off, turn your video on when you're speaking, that's fine. This room is small enough that it shouldn't really crash it. There's some links there for the useful things, for the links for the Meet Echo audio only and CodeMD. So next, there we go. Click on the next slide. This is the note. Well, this relates to, all the IPR notices that we have, how to working group progress, all kinds of stuff. I'll get to the anti-harassment things later, and the code of conduct, the copyright and patents. Basically, if you know anything about IPR in the space, you need to declare it before you participate, and that includes basically communicating in any way to the working group. And next, we're going to go. You might have seen this in a couple of working groups where we're trying to focus on the code of conduct guidelines. This working group has not had this problem, but I think it's worth just kind of repeating everywhere. We've got an RFC that defines the code of conduct. Basically, the highlights are to treat colleagues with respect, speak slowly, which I sometimes have a problem with. Try not to use slang so everybody can kind of get on and understand what's going on. We should dispute ideas by reasoned argument. Use our best engineering judgment, find the best solution for the whole internet, and contribute to the ongoing work of the IETF. And remember that we'd like this to apply everywhere, not just on the Meet Echo channel, but also in the mic, Jabber, Meet Echo, etc., and the mailing list for that matter. All right, kind of know that. That's us. The agenda is pretty straightforward. Like I said, I did request an hour and they gave us 2. So I basically just split it down the middle. We have 2 documents that we've adopted. We have more that we need to adopt, but these are the 2 that we're starting with, and kind of just split them between use cases and bundle. I do note that I put Felipe's name on the bundle draft. I think it's probably just going to be Jeffrey. And that's really it. We didn't have any particular slides. I thought we would basically just go to the repo and start working through any issues and have an open discussion unless anybody has any other ideas and wants to bash this agenda. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Cool. I also asked Felipe to kind of discuss a little bit about kind of his work and his team's work on bundle implementation progress. And so when we get to that section, I think he'll have some stuff to present.
Great. So I put his name in the right place then. Completely good call. All right, so let's get into the use cases. I'm just going to switch screens.
First, Sean,
yes.
There is one thing that we skipped right over, and that is we need a scribe, please.
Oh, yes.
Take notes into the Cody MD. Hopefully other people keep an eye on it, and the chairs will definitely go over it afterward, but somebody to get the initial set of notes into the Cody would certainly be helpful. Call for volunteers. Can't be Jeffrey. He's busy. Is anybody else paying attention? Mr. Bishop, Mr. Shahid, can I implore upon either of you to perhaps pay enough attention for notes? Is anybody listening other than Jeffrey?
Yeah, we only really need to highlight the decisions made. We don't really need blow by blow minutes.
Okay. Oh, Siobhan, I was encouraged by seeing your name, but I appreciate that you might have to duck out. So, yes, we should have worked this out ahead of time. Sorry, we did not. Is there anybody who doesn't possibly have to duck out in 15 minutes? Oh, and Jeffrey has volunteered to write down the decisions, which also the chairs are capable of doing. So, okay, thank you very much, Justin. We appreciate that highly. And like I said, the chairs will go over the notes to corroborate with our sense of the meeting, and of course, there's a YouTube video, so that should be sufficient. Thank you again, Justin, and away we go with Jeffrey.
So the use cases document is basically the content that y'all have seen before. It's still on my plate to split out the controversial use cases into an appendix and leave the rest in the main section. I believe the primary non-controversial use cases are basically the prefetch of content of like sub-resources. And so just about everything else will go into the appendix. Does anyone have particular, and then I'll also split out requirements similarly so that the only kind of essential requirements are the ones that are required by the agreed on use cases. Does anyone have particular use cases that you want to kind of see stay in the top section that kind of shouldn't move to the appendix? I don't hear anyone. So yeah, I'll proceed with that.
Siobhan is free to go, please.
Can you hear me okay? I had some
audio yes, we can. Before.
Yeah, we're good. I'm not a use case, but just wondering, and this might be addressed by the change you have, but just wondering why sub-resource bundling was so low in the list of the use cases, because I think they're ordered by priority, right?
Yeah, at least roughly by priority. It was not kind of in the top set of things that I was interested in when starting the work. Kind of we were looking at ways to replace or ways to compete with native apps where you can share the installation file. But it seems like there's kind of we can get partway there by doing sub-resources, and there's a lot more consensus in the community for doing sub-resources first. And so that seems like the right thing to focus on initially.
Yeah, gotcha.
Jeffrey, one thing I'll observe too is a couple of weeks ago, Larry has asked about this whole MIME multi-part thing, and then he wasn't suggesting we use it necessarily, but he wanted to add it as a use case and so on and so forth. Do you have thoughts, perhaps that you could even then share with Larry on the list for others to digest? Because Larry keeps coming back to this MIME multi-part thing, and so far we haven't seen energy in the group to go down that particular path. But if you had some relevant thoughts, they would certainly be welcome.
Yeah, the multi-part kind of scheme, like clearly the bundle format does compete with multi-part, but the particular use cases, like multi-part is a set of formats rather than a set of use cases, and so it, I think, hasn't been clear like what use cases in particular we're missing here. And this kind of the use cases that we've listed seem like the ones that we want to focus on. And I don't think Larry has said like here are use cases you're missing. He's just said like here's a bunch of multi-part stuff. You should look at kind of completely replacing it.
Right. I've also been confused on what Larry sees as the use case there. As opposed to the possibility of compatible formatting. And I will follow up with Larry on the list, suggesting that if he sees a relevant specific use case there, that he follow up to you with actual suggested text.
Yeah, and I think we do replace most or all of like the particular subtypes of multi-part. Like you can accomplish them using bundles, and it's not clear what in particular would need to change to replace the rest.
Great, thank you.
I guess the question is, do we want to talk about the implementation experience, or sorry, are we done with use cases? Yeah, so if we're done with use cases, I guess the question is, should we talk about implementation experience before we talk about the draft? I think that might be interesting because it might inform the bundles draft. So do we want to give Felipe the floor here and let him talk?
That is my suggestion.
All right, Felipe, welcome to come to the front of the room. Thanks.
Let me see if I can share my screen over here. Okay. Okay, hello everybody.
We're seeing the slides now.
Yeah, you can see them well.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so I'm Felipe Arias from Italia. We've been working in partnership with IO. Feel free to reach out after the meeting if you have any questions. And this is a short update on the work that we have been doing on the use case of resource preloading using bundle responses. You can have a look at the explainer for more details. The general approach is that a page would provide a list of resources to preload, and then would send a request to the server with a list of those resources that are not in the cache, and then the server would reply with a web bundle containing the resources. Each resource can be stored in the cache individually, and our proposal restricts the origin and the path of the resources to those of the reference bundle file, and also enforces URL consistency in the sense that for a given URL, the server must return the same resource regardless of whether the request has been done individually or as part of a bundle. Chromium has an implementation of a similar set of ideas. And we have an open issue there where we want to gradually converge towards a common complete specification. In the last meeting of the group, we discussed some changes to keep the spec as simple as possible and to focus on consensus functionality like preloading, while also allowing for additional sections that may extend the format for specific use cases. Related to the implementation of this spec, there is a Node.js module to create and read web bundles. And one of the things that we have been doing over the past weeks has been to update this tool to support the new updated version of the spec, while also keeping compatibility with the previous version. So with this Node.js module, we can prototype, implement a server that is aware of bundles and is able to handle and manipulate them. This is a bit how the backwards compatibility works, where the new version is used by default, but you can specify a previous one, and then the code in the bundle will be able to pick the right version. And this Node.js module can also be used in the browser. Took us some experimentation, but we managed to do it, which means that since we have support for web bundles in the server and in the client, we can prototype the whole bundle preloading use case. So that's what we have done. Our client parses the declarations in the HTML file that lists the resources that the page wants to preload, and then sends an HTTP request with a specific header that lists the resources that are not in the cache. In the case of the prototype, we are using a service worker, so the cache is the service worker's cache. And then the bundles or those requests are served by a small web server that supports bundle preloading with subsetting and is able to create bundles on the fly. So if the client requests only a subset of the resources that have been listed on the page, then the server can return only those resources in a new bundle. So this is how the current syntax that we have been using looks like, where you basically specify a reference web bundle file in the server and then list the resources. And you can use absolute or relative URLs for this. And this is just a draft. One benefit of this prototyping strategy is that it wouldn't take much to try out different syntaxes for this. We have a couple examples at the moment in the experiment repository. The first one is a very basic test where some resources are preloaded, and you can use the dev tools in the browser to see how those resources are retrieved, and then one by one they are made available in the cache. So they are retrieved in one request, but then they become several entries in the service worker's cache. The second example is a small React application that uses Webpack as a bundler tool. And in this case, bundle preloading is already able to improve the performance because the resources can be loaded in parallel in one single request, whereas by default, what Webpack does is that it loads the JavaScript, and then the JavaScript loads the rest of the resources. So it happens in sequence, which is slower. So what have we learned so far? Well, first, that this approach works for prototyping and for trying out a solution for this use case. It already allows us to test different scenarios where the solution might be used, and it gives us an easy way to experiment with different syntaxes for the HTML tags or for the HTTP headers. So far, the performance is actually reasonable. Of course, using a service worker adds its own overhead, but other than that, we are seeing that the solution has good potential for improving performance in the future, because we are seeing that we can reduce the number of request response round trips. We can parallelize downloading resources. We can put individual resources in the cache and so on. And the next steps for this line of work is to have better integration with bundler tools, so it's easier to try out in more use cases and in more pages. One of my colleagues, Cam, is working on benchmarking this solution and comparing it with bundler tools and with other solutions. We want to create more examples, so we are really looking for ideas of scenarios where people feel that this could be a good solution and something that they would like to try out. And a final thought is that I'm really wondering if this approach of prototyping and then iterating on that can also be applied for other use cases that we have on the table. And that's all for my short update. If you have any questions, thank you.
Your last point, is there any reason that you think that the way you're going wouldn't work with the other use cases?
Not necessarily. I mean, some of the use cases are pretty specific. I'm not sure that they would be suitable for prototyping just in JavaScript. But it was more of a general thought of whether this is something that can be used to try out other scenarios and other use cases. Basically, because one of the things that we are looking for is to find areas where people would be interested in seeing this being tried out.
Some of the use cases, the more long-term use cases, like being able to install a web app with kind of accurate trust, can't be prototyped in JavaScript because you have to bootstrap somehow. Like you can't install the service worker that does the kind of that is the prototype if you can't bootstrap somewhere. But for instance, the other use case that the Chrome origin trial is capturing, where kind of ads are being served as more self-contained sub-resources, that probably could have been prototyped this way.
I think so, because basically what you need for that is just to be able to load the bundle and then retrieve each of the resources. That's a good point, thank you.
Yeah, Siobhan, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that they definitely believe that preload is the way to go, where the client can choose which resources it wants to load. And I do wish that the original trial also had gone with that approach, because I think anything else, like where the client cannot choose sub-resource to load, would just basically be a non-starter.
Yeah, one of the things that we want to try out is some benchmarking, because we want to see, for example, what happens if the client requests a lot of resources in one go. Does that have a very big impact? Does that create a very large HTTP request that then has to travel to the server and so on? So those are the kinds of more edge cases that we want to try out.
Okay, that was, oh, Sean's back. Well, Sean, were you moving
I
on?
was going to say the same thing, that I think that we drained the queue on that one, that I think we're off to Jeffrey to talk about the bundle.
Yep.
The biggest question that I discovered recently was how to interact with the new HTTP working group's binary HTTP format. The kind of and I forwarded it to the list, but the direction that seems appropriate to me is to try to converge them, even though that probably involves several changes to the bundle format. And I was curious if people had thoughts on anything about that binary representation.
Well, the person most likely to have thoughts about it is unfortunately not in the room right now.
Yeah.
And just not to be opaque or anything, that's Martin Thompson, who's working on the other binary representation draft. But yes, as Siobhan has said in chat, convergence here would be good, minimizing the differences. So until we get a little bit more information, though, about what challenges might be involved there, I think you and Martin have to start seeing how you can work it all out, and then what issues that might bring up.
Let's see. Was going to
Basically what I was going to say. If we should definitely try to achieve a consensus to use one format, because if we have separate formats, I think it's a recipe for disaster.
Yep. Here are the issues on the repository. I don't think any of them are particularly urgent to answer right now. Let's see. Does anyone want to kind of dig into any of these today? I guess holler on the chat if one looks interesting to dig into. Otherwise, we could end early and go back to the list to dig into the binary format and the use cases.
I think we're lightly enough attended today and low energy enough that
I'm just curious, what are we clashing with during the agenda? On the agenda that it's probably trains people away from us.
Yeah.
I know Priv probably pulled Martin away.
Right.
Yeah, so that's something we'll have to make sure this is only for the next time we do this, to make sure that I get the clashes correct. Yeah, Priv probably sucked. Yeah.
I think though, Jeffrey, it does seem like we're not going to get any public comment on these outstanding issues right now. So proposed resolutions on the list is probably the way to go next.
Yep. And hopefully we'll be in person next time, which will help improve energy.
Yep. Okay. Well, Sean, oh, wait, Felipe has something to say. Please.
Yeah, one question that I did want to ask is about clarifying the process for the next steps in the use case document, and basically to see also where I can help.
You're asking how we make decisions about what to change in the use cases document?
Yeah, partially that, and also, what the next steps would be.
I believe the next steps are for us to send a PR reorganizing the use cases document, and then we'll send that to the list for comments.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, that if you go ahead and update the document and then people will comment, then I think you can engage, people will be engaged to be like, yes, that one is in or out, the ones that are still on the front part of the document. And then we can actually get to whether we're done. And it might be as easy as just moving things, and that would be great. And then we could focus our energy elsewhere. I highly doubt that. I'm sure there's be something that's controversial, but yeah, it's basically just reorganize the document and then we'll go from there. Because now it's a working group document. One of the reasons why you want to submit the old version the way it is so that when you submit the next version, that's the 01 version of the working group, you can see what's changed as part of the working group document. Process and all that stuff. So I think that yeah, if you guys can just get the next version up when available, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, then I guess we can coordinate among ourselves in the coming days.
The only other thing I would add is just to make sure that you know, do it in the GitHub so it's open and people can see what's going on. And if we have any questions, we can just refer them to the list. We can CC the list. We probably should go ahead and get WPAC mailing list set up so there are weekly summaries sent. I think Mark Nottingham has a cool tool that'll allow us to do that. And so that if the tempo on the mailing list or the tempo in the GitHub repo picks up, then the mailing list will automatically get CC'd with whatever gets changed.
I think Jeffrey popped on to say yes. I don't know exactly, but
Sorry. Yes, that is what I said.
okay. The audio didn't actually come through, but it was brief enough that I thought that was. And Felipe must have done the same. You have to give it a half a second for the audio actually channel to connect. But Sean, I think we are probably in agreement that much like we expected with only needing an hour session, I think that we're going to be ending early here at only half an hour, right? Do you have any other business you need, Sean?
I do not. The only other thing is to think about is that we do have other drafts in the working group in our statement of work that we agreed with the ISG, and so at some point we'll need to begin engaging on those. And I guess there's probably some other things that need to get done first, but if you want to start working on those drafts, feel free. You know, we basically will start the process the same way we did with the other drafts, with individual drafts that we will then evaluate and, you know, run an adoption call on. So if any of the other work items that are available on our charter, feel free to jump in there and start working on them.
Yep.
That's it for me.
Yeah, and I think now you all have some time to go ahead and drop over to Priv or HRPC or whatever you like. And we're going to call it here. Thanks again for the note taking, and we'll see you on the list. Bye, all.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.